Schools for today. Oh, I don't have the right agenda, sorry. For today, September the 8th, and I make a motion that we move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with units A, B, C, and D. Having these discussions in open session may be detrimental to the school committee's bargaining position, as well as moving into executive session to comply with an act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid, specifically open meeting law and executive session minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
I don't know who got it. Melissa's not here. Oh, Melissa's coming. Andrea, was that you?
No, it was Natalie.
Natalie, thank you. And it's a roll call. Lisa?
Yes.
Natalie?
Natalie Canelopoulos, yes.
Leah?
Leah Palmer, yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Andrea?
Andrea Thorold, yes.
Melissa, this is just to move into executive session in case you couldn't
I saw that part.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep.
I'm also a yes, so it's unanimous. So I will see you guys all over in the other link. For the meeting of the Falmouth Public Schools, if you're an attendee joining us, we were just in executive session, so we're just reopening. I remind everyone that this meeting is being telecast and recorded on channel 14, and anyone who wants to make an audio or video recording of the meeting to notify me as chair, and I'll inform the public as required by open meeting law. Do we have anyone who would like to record? Just put your, see any hands? Okay, and per Governor Baker's order suspending certain parts of the open meeting law, the public cannot physically access the school committee meeting, but can view the meeting live on the link provided through Zoom or live stream through channel 14, and then also available through our YouTube channel. Does any member of the school committee have their agenda to read? Oh, Lisa, quick on the draw. Thank you. Can you start us off, please?
Sure. Falmouth Public Schools mission. The Falmouth Public Schools creates world-class student learning experiences. Our Clippers are empowered to pursue their goals with curiosity, integrity, and resiliency. The Falmouth Public Schools vision is Clippers are creative, inquisitive, and engaged learners who participate in their community as socially responsible citizens.
I said to drink this.
Clippers effectively communicate and solve problems that impact the world around them.
Thanks, Lisa.
Sure.
So we'll start with public comment on items that are not already on our meeting agenda. Each comment is limited to 2 minutes, and we can't take any action. But if you have anything that you'd like to share with us, we'd be happy to listen. Do we have any public comment tonight? Oh, I finally get that it pops all the way to the top. So I see there is one public comment from oh, you're quick. Thanks, Ryan. Can you just tell us who you are? So we have your name in the record.
Yep, my name is Monet Berthiaume. I don't know why it's not coming up with my video, but that's okay. My name is Monet Berthiaume, and I am a parent of 5 children, as well as I hold a degree in early childhood education. And I'm coming in today to speak about the concerns that are in place that I have heard and discussed with many parents, as well as with other teachers in regards to the strategies that you guys have behind having children wear masks for 8 hours a day. And I understand it's per in order, but it is also a health hazard. You know, obviously when you wear a mask, you are breathing in carbon dioxide and your body needs oxygen. Not only that, but then you are creating molecules of moisture, which now you are leading to fungus, bacteria, as well as with possibly mold, and now you're breathing that in, suppressing your immune system. Not only that, but then you have the fact that, you know, children need to learn and play, and they are not allowed to be able to go outside and play on the playground, move from their seat. Obviously, as early educators, we know that the importance of play, social interaction, and being able to have free play, free choice is such an integral part of a learning thing, as well as with, not only are we talking about physical, but we're talking about social, emotional, and mental health. Obviously, you guys are not in any sort of way thinking about the traumatizing effect that you're having on children. My son, who was born, and I have 3 adopted children in my life, so it's not like so just for that record. But he was not exposed to facial expressions and was isolated. And due to that, he had mental health issues because of this. So the importance of seeing facial expressions and being able to engage with other children and not isolate. My question is, as a school board, school committee, do you guys take into any of these? I've heard from other teachers that they have all said this, and yet no one seems to care about the mental health or the social interaction or the whole overall child. You're only thinking about going off of a fear-based tactic, which I don't know if you guys have seen the latest CDC numbers that there's only actually been 9,210 deaths recorded that were actually due to corona. 94% were actually caused by secondary causes. So, you know, as a parent in the community, I am completely in kind of like the requirements that I feel bad for the teachers, number one, because what you're requiring, how do you talk through a math for 8 hours? Now you're talking about speech impediments.
Renee, I just want to let you know you only have 20 seconds remaining.
Okay. So for me personally, as a parent, like, you guys can do better. And I hope that you think about the overall well-being of all the children. And there are a lot of parents in the community that are really not happy. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope you can stay and hear a little bit more about how things are going to reopen during our update. Any other public comment? Okay, I don't see any. So we will move right into hearing from our favorite guest, Scott McGann. Thanks for joining us again. What's the update? What's the word?
Okay, so as of today, we have 251 cases. So if you remember, a couple weeks ago, we had 0 for the week. So we have gained 10 over the past 10 days, 7 of them being local cases, 3 that were tested way out of state but used an address. One of the things with this, and we've talked about cases, is what they use for their address is what they use for their address. So 3 of them were tested elsewhere, other states. So I would say the count is more accurate to be at 7 than 10. However, there are some more cases, and it's related to, if you remember, the Steamship Authority. There's a couple of healthcare and a couple of ones that I would say were random occurrences that happened as we get. So we've had 10. That probably means we'll be green tomorrow, which is the green metric is less than 4 a day for a 14-day average. Less than 5 cases, we're not at less than 5 now if you go with the 14-day. So we would probably not be in gray. I would think tomorrow we would be in green. So, you know, we're doing the contact tracing on those cases. Hospitalizations still remain low. I think we've been 1 or less now for a couple of months at least. There's 1 hospitalization right now at Falmouth Hospital. I think 1 also at Cape Cod Hospital. So in terms of the case counts, that's where we are. Trying to think if there's anything else worth covering. The percent positivity, the higher, we were at 1.1 when we were in the green. On the 27th, we're at 0.5. We went up to 0.9 because some of those 10 cases were in last week's 2-week average, so we went to 0.9. We'll go up a little bit, probably above that 1.1 probably for this week, which would keep us in the green. With the state average being 4.2 per 100,000, we're going to be somewhere around 1 point. So we're still going to be lower than the state average. But for us, that was an increase that we hadn't, puts us into the green from the gray. So I think that's sort of the review of the cases. I think that's where you want to know most of the information. Sorry, I'm looking at the computer at the same time.
No, that's okay. So I just want to clarify, because the last time you were with us, we were in the green, but then you just said we would be moving from gray to green.
Yeah, because
probably tomorrow.
Yeah, last week we were in the gray.
Okay.
Because we had less than 5. So I don't think we've been together for a couple weeks now.
Right.
So last week we were in the gray because we had less than 5 cases. We actually went a whole week without cases. Okay. Which is always a wonderful thing. And then we went up starting early last week. We had some cases associated with Steamship. They had a cluster. And then we had a couple of ones that occurred through healthcare, being a healthcare provider. And then a couple of cases that happened, and 3 that don't make sense to me. I mean, the test was taken in Kentucky or a test was taken in Florida. Those people, but it's one of the flaws that we've talked about before is, what counts as a Falmouth case and what doesn't. You know, we tend to export, like we said before, tend to export more cases in the summer because we have a lot of people coming here. And we tend to import probably more from about September, especially in like April. April will have a tendency when the snowbirds want to come back in. If we still had a travel advisory where you had to test, for example, you would tend to grab people that were in Florida that might have their main address being here because they were down in Florida for 3 months and picked it up there. And that happened this past April. So that's the three of those 10, I would say, were more that issue. But 7 is still more than 0 and still more than what we'd like to see. But you know, nothing kind of popped out of me as seeing irregular since I've seen every case from day one. I wouldn't say anything has been irregular, but of course it's something you have to keep an eye on, and that's kind of where we are with the cases. I didn't know if anything else specifically you wanted me to go through. Usually the questions eat up most of the time, so.
I know, right? So thanks for being willing to answer them. Does anybody have any questions for Scott? I think we've bombarded you a lot in the past. Maybe we've questioned ourselves out. Can you, actually, do you know how many tests we've done? Out of curiosity.
So again, that data, I don't get daily updates on the number of tests. I get a weekly one from the state. And actually, just to remind everybody who might be on the call, it's the same data that you guys get in the Wednesday updates from the state, the weekly update that you get that comes in around 5 or 6 o'clock on Wednesdays. It's the same data I get because I'm concerned with positives, not negatives. But between our 14-day tests, total tests as of 9/2 were 1,435.
Thank you.
One of the interesting things I saw looking at the data was, you know how we have to register if you're traveling? You know, if you had to take a guess, Kelly, how many people have registered so far?
As traveling into Falmouth?
Again, have actually completed the form with the state. If you had to take a guess, I want to put you on the spot. Take a guess.
I would like to think it might be 1,000, but I bet it's not even that high.
Most people have guessed 10 to 15. We've actually almost had 2,000.
Really?
Yeah, which I thought was great. We've had 2,000 people who have who've come in here and have done the paperwork that is asked for by the state. Probably, obviously not everybody, and I don't even know what the percentage is, but it was a lot higher than I thought, which was.
I'm shocked it's that high.
So we've tested about averaging between 600 and 700 tests a week. Is what the average is, according to testing. Obviously, as the population dwindles and things like that, the testing, you know, I don't know where the testing is going to go from here, but it was the highest week we've had for 2-week testing for that. So.
Any question? Any last thoughts for Scott? All right, you're getting off the hook early tonight. Thank you. I know, right?
The other thing too, though, is just remember, I do that FCTV spot every week where I spend about 15 minutes. It tells you everything I could, you know, and then of course you guys can always email me directly.
You want to do a plug for when that is so everyone knows?
I do it every Friday, and it's usually posted on YouTube and FCTV and our website by Friday afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Scott. We appreciate it.
That was easy. I'm going home.
And I just had Greg, I'm sorry, Dr. Parkinson join us. And I didn't know if you actually had something you wanted to share with us or if you just wanted to be part of the conversation. Okay. So we will just hang on to you for, thanks, Scott. Take care. Dr. Parkinson can just stay with us because he's coming up on the agenda in a couple of minutes. I see that we have a question from the public. Can we hear from Ralph? Ryan, can you promote him? Thank you. Hi, Ralph. Can you give us your name for the record?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ralph Petty. I'm a parent here in Falmouth. I've been here for about 5 years. I just wanted to make a comment. And first of all, I wanted to thank you all for your time and what you all do. I think you guys are rock stars and amazing. So last time I watched y'all's school committee meeting, and the union rep kind of came on. I was watching with my daughters and whatnot, just trying to figure out our scheduling, and being a single dad of daughters is trying to figure everything out. And one thing that was catching them was that she kept on repeating stuff. And one of my daughters made a comment of, hey, listen, I think she's trying to cause attention to it. And then another one says, oh, maybe it's, she's worried about, everything else coming on and teachers and whatnot. And then my youngest daughter, who goes to Mullen Hall, who is my heartbeat, she says, Dad, you need to make some more masks for them, because we made about 5,000 masks for people in Falmouth and whatnot. But I was concerned, and I talked about it with some friends of mine that are teachers and different things and different unions and stuff. And I hope, I'm not trying to speak out of turn when I say this, but I heard rumors and scuttlebugs saying that the union was a possibility of a strike, and that that there was a possibility that they were being told to come up with excuses rather than solutions. And that's one thing that I teach my daughters to make sure that we're coming up with more solutions than excuses and trying to solve issues. And I just really wanted to kind of put that out there. I hope it's not happening. I love teachers. I would never ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself or put them in harm in any way, shape, or form. But I just trying to wrap my brain around it and trying to get the understanding of trying to talk to my daughters about, to answer the question of, Dad, why does the teachers think they're going to hurt me or I'm going to hurt them? So I'm just trying to understand that and trying to get more answers. Again, I'm new to the area, so I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn with anything, but it is something that, you know, I'm concerned with my kids as well as the teachers. And like I said, I would do anything for anybody if you know me. And I just wanted to say thank you again for letting me voice just a simple opinion I have.
Thank you so much. And this is exactly what the public comment period is intended for. So you're not out of turn at all. Thank you for sharing them. And thank you for making 5,000 masks. That is remarkable. And, you know, personally, I welcome a little y'all in our meeting every once in a while because I lived in the South for quite some time. So thanks for bringing that too. So next up on the agenda is hearing an update from the superintendent, which I'm sure is mostly about reopening. Lori, it's all yours.
Thank you, Kelly. The schedules, just wanted a couple updates to the schedules did come out on Friday from the principals. Everyone should be able to know who the teachers are, what the schedule is going to look like. And so we're excited about that. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tallier a little bit to talk about the first 3 weeks of the start of school before we get into our full models. Dr. Tallier?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Dorr. So we started today a countdown for back to school, and we're starting to share information to get students ready to go back to school on Monday, September 21st, recognizing that that week is a fully remote week for all Falmouth Public School students. They will be learning together synchronously or at the same time in the morning. And then there'll be asynchronous scheduling for the afternoon. So that's going to carry through every day, Monday through Friday that week. The following 2 weeks, students will begin to come to school in person for half the day. And so that is being staggered, in part being assigned by students' cohorts in the hybrid model or by the alphabetizing of last names in the elementary grades as well. And so students who are coming in person on those half days will have a chance to practice some of the health and safety protocols and begin to get familiar with them, with their peers seated around them. But it'll also follow the same model of learning together in the morning half of the day synchronously, and then the afternoon continuing with asynchronous activity. And that's so that despite the fact that some students are going to be in person for half of the day, those days count as full days of learning for our students. And then beginning on Tuesday, October 13th, immediately preceding the long weekend in October, students who are in person pre-K to 4 or 100% remote will settle into their schedules and their daily routines. And then students at Morris Pond Lawrence School and Falmouth High School who are in the alternating weeks of the hybrid model or who may be participating 100% remotely will also settle into their every other week alternating routine. So those first 3 weeks will be full days of school. I think the catch on the half day, just to clarify, is about how the morning part will be structured and then how the afternoon part will be structured so that students will have the opportunity, again, to work on different activities and assignments, bringing them through the afternoon so that teachers and administrators can continue to build up routines, respond to questions that may come up in the day, and be prepared for the next day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. I don't know if any of the school committee members have any questions or comments about that section before I continue my update. Okay, great. So just to talk about the calendar a little bit, we had put out a calendar that was the September and October because we wanted to get that out immediately to families so that they could see what the first 2 months would look like. In the calendar, we had mentioned that there was a half day in September and there was a half day in October that we were going to reschedule at another time because we didn't want to have those embedded within the schedule that Sonia had just shared with us. So we were going to reschedule those 2 half days sometime in the rest of the school year. And then as you know, the first 10 days of the school year was negotiated between the Commissioner of Education and the state unions, that there were 10 days of professional development days for staff before school, the students started. And so we successfully negotiated with the union that one of the first 3 days that were the district days that we normally have on the calendar, one of those would count toward the 10 days. So we counted that 1 day, which ended up being September 1st, then the 4 days this week, the 5 days next week, which accumulated those 10 days before students start. So that meant there was 1 district day that was on the calendar that needs to be added on in the calendar too. So you should not see any major changes in the rest of the year of the calendar. So I know we gave you September and October. November through June should not be any major changes except for possibly adding 1 or 2 half days that's rescheduled and the 1 additional PD day. We have not put that calendar out yet because we want to work with the Educators Association in figuring out what's the most strategic time to actually add those to the calendar. And then that calendar will come back to the school committee because any changes to those items come back to the school committee for a vote. So that will be out soon, but I just want families to know that we're not making any major changes to the calendar as far as the school days for students, except for possibly 2 half days and 1 full day. With that said, you know, we know that when the school committee decided and voted on a plan that we have, you know, we're doing the hybrid at the high school, Lawrence and Morse Pond. We're doing the in-person learning at the 4 elementary schools. And we also had to create a fully remote schedule and a hybrid schedule and an in-person schedule for all of our schools. And based on our updates, you know, the state of COVID for the Massachusetts and our updates from Scott McGann, our health agent, as he will be joining us every week now, or every school committee meeting. I do talk to him every week. So, but based on that and based on our updates, you know, any of those models could change based on the state of COVID. And so we do need to know that. And I know that we've said that all along, and I just want to keep reminding us, you know, our goal is to get the students in. The 3 weeks that Dr. Tellier was describing, it is for safety purposes and having our students and staff adjust to the new routines and the safety and health protocols, first to be trained and then to practice. And so that is the reason for the slow start. But we are anxious to get started in our full models. And hopefully Scott will continue to report that we're in the green or the gray because that's how that's going to happen. But just wanted to remind us of that. Speaking of our Educators Association, we are continuing to negotiate. We have successfully negotiated a few tentative agreements. And we're continuing to talk, but we are moving forward, and we're very positive about that. We are waiting on, as I'm sure everyone's heard, the state unions have asked for HVAC assessments at all the school districts, and the school districts have been engaging in HVAC assessments in all their buildings. We've gotten through the on-site assessment part, and now we are waiting for the report back from the engineers that conducted the report. So we don't have anything to update tonight on the reports, but that will be forthcoming. And hopefully we'll have those reports soon. And so you can watch out for updates on that.
So Lori, if it's okay, I'm just going to interject real quick because I was going to do it at the end, but I might as well just do it now. That the first step when those reports come will be to sit down with our union folks and the experts and go over them. But then the next step will be for the school committee to have that report in an open session. And so just so you can plan, so school committee members and the public will know, it's our intention to make all of that public. And if it happens to be before our next regularly scheduled school committee meeting, time of course being of the essence, we may try to schedule an emergency meeting in our normal off week. Might as well just say that now. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
That's okay.
No, thank you, Kelly. So that is the plan. And to those members of our school community and beyond, if you are unable to tune in to the school committee meeting when we talk about that, I will send an update in the letter home about the report. So we will definitely get that information out in a timely manner. And the only other thing that I'm excited to announce tonight is that I do believe that we may have our public health nurse on board soon. So we're excited about that. I know that is just, it's important as far as the overall safety and health of our school district. So in addition to a health nurse at every building and a health assistant at every building, we'll have the public health nurse as well. So thank you.
Lauren, can you just mention a little bit, I got to hear it because I was in budget subcommittee today, what that public health nurse is what the main responsibilities will be, so people who don't work in public health know.
Great. So they will be actually just being able to respond to questions from our families, from our staff members about COVID and whatever, whatever those type of questions would be. But they will also help us do the contact tracing. So certainly Scott McGann and Dr. Parkinson will be involved in those conversations if we do have a positive case and being able to contact. But the public health nurse would be in the same capacity as we think in the community as our VNA, the Visiting Nurse Association, so that do the contact tracing. So they will have that capability. So they will help us complete that process if that need arises. In addition, they can, and to answering questions, they can do training as well. So just training all of our admin staff, our principals, key people, in the schools, just to train people so they really understand fully what that process is. So we were able to, we were very excited that we had some responses to that and that we do believe that we have secured someone now.
Thanks. Leah?
I'm wondering, Lori, where this came from in the budget. So with the public health nurse, or if this was a CARES Act grant or something that we could use, that we got money in another way.
Patrick, I saw you unmute.
No, the superintendent knows it. We have two grants from the state's CVRF grant and ESSER grant. Both we'll use those grants to cover these types of positions.
Okay, because this does seem like a great way to use those funds. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions about any of the update from Dr. Dorr?
Yeah.
John?
I would just chime in on that having a nurse who can field a lot of the questions and do a lot of the legwork will free up the nurses within the schools to be focusing on the children who are at school. And it's very, very difficult when you're in the middle of caring for somebody one-on-one, then have to be fielding phone calls from outside the community. And it's really going to help the nurses and the assistants within the schools.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, just more of a statement, you know, that with the apprehension that we all have, you know, from in addressing, you know, but from the parent side, from even our, you know, school committee side, and the negotiations currently going underway with the FEA, we appreciate their efforts too. If you indulge a guy who was raised as a City of Boston kid, a nautical metaphor, our clipper ship needs to set sail, and it's, you know, there's going to continue to be pending items. That's okay. You know, we're all collectively bosuns, and they're going to resolve those challenges once we're underway. The administrators, teachers, support teams, parents, students, siblings. Things are going to continue to change. You know, we're all going to continue to have certain levels of feeling, geez, we just got a handle on this, and now it's adjusted again. That's COVID-19 reality. Moving forward together, learning together, adjusting to necessary tweaks, getting comfortable, and then adjusting all over again. I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. And, you know, just trying to give everyone a little bit of space, because it's hard. It's all so, you're right. We just get used to it and then it changes again. So, any last questions for Lori? Okay. Hold on, I didn't look to see. I'm trying to remember to look for public comment before I've gone to like 6 items down. I don't see any. Okay, so next up on our agenda is an update on Falmouth High School sports, the much anticipated. Lori, who's...
Sorry, I think
Yeah.
Terry had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Terry. I didn't see you.
No, I didn't have a question. I just want to make a comment, but it's hard to follow John's clippership metaphor, but none of us will have to walk the plank, in other words, John. That's what you're saying, right? No, I just want the public to know, people have expressed that they're confused with the scheduling and everything, but I asked the public to look behind that people are trying to look in advance of any problems so that, you know, so that we're as prepared as can be. And I want to reiterate what we said, that there are 3 schedules that have been developed, you know, in-person, hybrid, and remote, all 3 of those things. But anyway, so if you're confused, be alerted that it's because it's an overabundance of caution of things to make all those 3 plans doable. Okay, that was just a comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. And I think, you know, that's a good point, that if people are confused, Lori, what do you want as the parting message for where they go if they're confused? Because it's so much information. So where do we want the takeaway to be for where people go if they need help?
Right. So if it is about the school schedules, going to the principal, because the schedules are different in every building, and I think they could be the most helpful. If it is anything about the overall health and safety of the district, any other thing, they can certainly reach directly out to me. They can use our info at falmouth.k12.ma.us email, and we get back to those as well. So, so anything in general that seems to be district-wide, use the info address or me directly. If it's teaching and learning, you know, Dr. Tellier can certainly answer that. You can go directly to her, or like I said, if it's schedule or school specific, your principals are the best source.
And it's okay to ask them. Like, I have this argument with my daughter all the time. It's really okay to email your teacher or your principal and ask them stuff. Like, they would rather have you know.
It helps us too. It helps us to, when you ask questions, then we automatically assume that others might have that same question, and gives us an opportunity to put it in a frequently asked question, you know, and add that to the website, or to clarify during a school committee meeting, or in one of my weekly letters, or I have the principals clarify. So the questions are very helpful for us. So please, please ask.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I've got a lot of questions about sports, so let's move to that. So we have an update on Falmouth High School sports, and I'm not sure, Lori, who's taking the
Yes, so
lead?
we have several people here. Mary Gans is the principal of Falmouth High School, is going to start. Kathleen Burke, our AD for the district, will give some more specifics. And then I also have Julie Williams-Tinkham here with us tonight that can answer questions. Tim Wakefield is also here, and then Dr. Parkinson. I'm looking around for people as I was saying that. So they're kind of everywhere here, but we're all here available to address any questions that you may have afterwards. But I'm going to turn it over to Mary Gans.
Thank you, Lori. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for having me here. So in mid-August, the Department of Education in Massachusetts and the MIAA, which is the state organization which oversees all high school athletics, they released athletic guidance, and they recommended that school districts consider certain sports going forward in the fall and then later in the year. So Falmouth High School is in the Cape and Islands Athletic League, and the principals and the athletic directors met on September 2nd to review the guidance and to reach an agreement that we thought we could reasonably move forward with certain sports in the fall. And it's called Fall 1 now. So there's a Fall 1 season, and the sports that were recommended from the Cape and Islands League were golf, which would be boys golf, because at Falmouth High School, girls golf is already played in the spring. Cross country, field hockey, boys and girls soccer, and volleyball was on the state list, but the Cape and Islands League decided, because it's indoors and given some of the ramifications, we decided to put that off to the Fall 2 season, which doesn't start until February. So there are 13 schools, I think there are 13 schools in the Cape and Islands League. The Cape and Islands League is also part of a bigger district within the MIA, and all of the schools in that district that we are part of, I think it's 4 different leagues, they've all agreed to move forward with these sports, or they've recommended to move forward with these sports. There are new protocols in place, new rules in place, fewer players on the field, different plays that are allowed and not allowed. Kathleen Burke will talk about those specifics, but our intent is that we move forward, we will strictly enforce all of the new protocols, mask, distancing, the new rules of the game. And given the coaches that we have of these particular sports, I have great confidence that the rules will be enforced. I have great confidence in Julie and Kathleen and Tim in knowing that they will be overseen and enforced. And, you know, we also met with Dr. Parkinson to really get his feedback to see what he was considering was reasonable to move forward with. So having said that we will strictly enforce the rules, we also will have zero tolerance for any violation of the rules and will not hesitate to pull the plug, so to speak, if there is any issue whatsoever. Also, I should note the coaches and the game officials are responsible for enforcing the rules as well. We will have strict locker room and changing protocols, very limited locker room availability, or limited access to the locker rooms. And we would likely not allow spectators, because that's one thing that we cannot control. Especially with a lot of our open fields, we would not be able to control who would be able to come in the game, and certainly not control their behavior or where they're from and that kind of thing. So I think that's about it. Kathleen Burke will explain sort of the new rules and the fewer players, but I'm happy to entertain. I don't know if you want to hear Kathleen first and then ask questions, or if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
I think we should probably go around and hear from everyone first, just in case people ask questions that Kathleen's about to answer.
Right.
So.
Okay. And that could be. Okay, thank you. Mary gave you a great overview of how we've gotten to this point. And each sport that's being offered has a long list of rules, regulations, modifications, but there's some general ones, which I think will answer a lot of questions. First of all, any student participating in an athletic program, there's a mandatory health screening. It models what we do in school, except we're actually going to be checking temperatures. If a coach or an athlete has a temperature over 100.4, they won't be allowed to participate at practice or a game. And we have to follow all of the Department of Health regulations regarding testing, quarantine, isolation. So clearly, any of these athletic protocols are in line with Department of Public Health protocols. One thing that the MIA, DESE, Department of Public Health, is requiring is that all participants are broken down into smaller groups, cohorts, or pods. So if your child is participating in soccer or field hockey or cross country or golf, they're going to be divided into groups of 5 to 10 students, and they'll stay with those cohorts. And that's for all team activities. That means warm-ups, stretching, drills, practices. A record has to be kept by the coach. The head coach is responsible for this, for who's in which group. And again, that goes back to, if we do have an outbreak, the whole contact tracing piece of things. We have to maintain social distancing of 6 feet or greater at all times. And then there's some other modifications within specific sports that go beyond that. Mask and face coverings are required by the athletes, the coaches, the officials. There's room in the modified sports rules for momentary mask breaks. And only when, because people have asked me, how do you keep your mask on when you're, dribbling a ball down the field? If there's no one within 10 feet of you on a field or at practice, you're allowed to drop your mask momentarily. But mask and face coverings are required. What they call the default setting is you have your mask on, and that's for everybody. Only essential personnel is allowed at either a practice or a competition. Now, I'm just going to go through, the general ones. These are long guidelines that they've given us, but I think this will answer some questions that people have already asked me. Essential personnel are the athletes, the coaches, medical personnel, and the trainers. If there's a game, the officials. But managers, photographers, media, even spectators are not considered essential personnel. So, parents can't come and watch practice. Reporters can't come on the field to talk to the coach about what's going on. Equipment cannot be shared. And a specific example is everyone that's playing field hockey will have their own field hockey ball. Everyone that's playing soccer will have their own soccer ball. And there's strict protocols for cleaning and disinfecting any equipment. Personal equipment must be kept in a gym bag, or in the case of golf, a golf bag by each participant. And it includes their own water bottle. We're not going to have water at the fields. There'll be no troughs or water, kegs of water. In addition to the water bottle, they have to keep an extra mask, hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, and all those things stay in their own personal bag, which is then laid out in a designated area 6 feet apart. So that personal gym bag becomes critical to this working. You're not going to be able to share any, never mind a water bottle, any equipment. And even when kids are sitting around talking or stretching, they're going to be 6 feet apart. It gets to the point where they're talking about benches. You can't have benches out at practice. That would encourage kids to congregate. Instead, you're allowed to bring out benches if you have a game, but even then, you have to be 6 feet apart. So they may stretch the whole length of a sideline. As Mrs. Gantz mentioned, locker rooms and changing areas are allowed, but under very strict limitations. Athletes will be encouraged to arrive for the practice or game in their workout clothing, ready to go, and then to go home and shower and change. So we're going to minimize the contact in as many ways as possible, with the smaller cohort groups being a fundamental part of it, but also in the comings and goings. You'll find out that they've eliminated things like handshakes, no huddles, no introductions. Even the ball retrievers for field hockey and soccer are not allowed. We have to have extra balls on the side, and I think it's one of my jobs to make sure the ball is disinfected each time it comes off. So of the multiple pages of general requirements, those are the ones that come up quite often. One important one is we have to designate a COVID coach. And I've asked Tim Wakefield as the athletic trainer to be that person so that if we have any COVID-related issues, a coach, a player, a parent, go to Tim if it's an athletic-related situation. Certainly they can go to me, they can let Mrs. Gans know, but a lot of the medical and health information goes through Tim, and then there's school nurses, and I was glad to hear there's a public health nurse coming on board. All right, so those are general requirements. They're listed in a lot more detail on the MI website if anybody wants to go through it. But Superintendent Durr also asked me to just go through some of the sport-specific modifications. And again, I'm not going to read through all those. I'll give you a couple examples so you know the detail, the level they've gone to try to make these activities safe. We know, there's risk with everything we're doing, but all these guidelines that I just went over and these sport-specific ones are an attempt to reduce the risk. For instance, cross country. We'll have staggered starts, runners are 6 feet apart. We line ours up on the starting line, and then the next school, they're only dual meets, not multiple school meets, would be 14 feet behind that starting line, and they must be staggered at least 3 minutes apart. So basically times are determining the place a cross-country runner finishes. The results at the end of the race. They don't want teams and coaches from other schools sitting around waiting for them. They've asked that the results of the cross-country meets be posted virtually, and that as soon as the visiting team is done, they board their mode of transportation, I guess still buses, and leave as soon as possible. It's part of the price we're paying to try to do this. For golf, similar kinds of restrictions. Face coverings are required except when you are outside of the 6 feet. So it's possible if a player is teeing off and everybody is 6 feet back, the person teeing off could drop their mask momentarily. But as soon as they return to a group, we still want social distancing. The mask has to be up. Things like even tee times or starts will be 10 minutes apart. Again, that staggered start that they're doing in cross country. Scorecards are not exchanged. The coach is responsible for distributing the cards and the pencils with gloves on, collecting them, and one player will be designated as a marker recording the score. Let's see, in field hockey, they reduced the number from 11 on each side, 11 to 7v7. For field hockey people out there, there's no corner hits. It's replaced with a 25-yard hit. You're not going to see the traditional, teams line up and the official comes by and make sure the stick is okay and the goggles are okay. Coaches are expected to do that ahead of time. So a lot of the things that have just been part of these sports have just been eliminated. The official in field hockey, and I believe in soccer as well, will use an electronic whistle. It's kind of a beeping sound so that we don't have any aerosols coming from the whistle. There's some alternatives to that, but they've gotten to that level of detail. And lastly, the sport that had the most modifications and the one that we debated the most about was soccer. And in order for high schools to play soccer this fall, a lot of new rules were put in. Basically, it involves no intentional contact between any players. That means there's no slide tackles, no corner hits, no heading the ball, no throw-ins. Everything they could do to limit the contact. The goalie is very restricted. They only can kick the ball, no drop kicks. But if you're not allowed to spit on your hands, or no, spitting is not allowed anywhere in any of these sports. But if the goalie spits on their glove, I guess sometimes a goalie will do that to get a grip, they're removed from the game, and the gloves are as well. So those are the 4 sports that we're proposing for this fall 1 season. Football, cheerleading, unified basketball. Whoops, am I still there? There I am, yep. In volleyball, we are planning to move to the fall 2 season. But for the fall 1 season, starting September 18th, officially from the MIAA, we'll talk about whether we want to have any meetings at all before the first official day of school on September 21st. So I know that's a lot to digest, but I think it gives you an idea of the work that's been put into this and kind of the attention to detail and the expectations we have for everyone involved. If we want to do this, we have to follow all these rules. And it's going to be quite clear to everyone because we know what the consequences will be if we don't follow the rules. All right, so that's
Thank
my
you.
piece of the overview.
Thanks, Kathleen. It was really
You're welcome.
helpful. Very
All right.
helpful. A lot of information, but very helpful. Lori, did you want us to, I'm not sure, oh, I actually lost Julie. Oh no, there she is. I'm sorry. Julie, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or Tim, anything to add to the things that we've already heard?
I think that was a very thorough job, but I'm here should you have any questions.
Thanks. Tim, did you have anything? Great. And Dr. Parkinson, did you have any thing that you wanted to share with us about being part of the process? And then we'll go to, I see lots of committee members have questions too.
So, just maybe, and no, I mean, in terms of the detail, I think that sums it up. And, from the health point of view, we have to realize that we're balancing trying to get kids out and active and things that make them sane and happy and reduce anxiety with the risks. And recognizing that there is very little research in terms of, this hasn't really been done long enough for anybody to know whether one sport is truly a level of, safety higher than another. And so we know that outside is safer than inside. We know that small groups are safer than big groups. We know that contact is riskier than no contact. And so those are the kinds of things that people are using to make these decisions. And then from there, it's really just consensus.
Thank you. All right, lots of questions. Leah, I saw your hand first, and then we'll go to Melissa.
Okay, so Kathleen, you were talking about the health screenings. And my question is, who would be responsible for the health screenings? And this actually brings me to kind of a bigger question of, do we have the capacity with staff and coaches and assistant coaches to be able to really ensure that we can do all of these things? Because it sounds like
Right.
lots of checks.
A lot of it will fall to head coaches before they start their activities. Okay, you have to make sure that the member of the team has gone to Tim Wakefield in the training room and been screened, or I would be there. But I envision each team having a digital thermometer. Or what we're doing, I think, at the school level is basically a self-screening. If you have any symptoms, if you don't feel well, but the temperature, while not required, is highly recommended, checking everyone's temperature. So I think we need to institute a system where that works. Through the trainer, myself, and each team has 3 coaches. So somebody can do that piece of it. We're not doing that to go to school, but this isn't, an extracurricular in the afternoon, and the contact might be closer.
So just a clarification then. So it would be somewhat similar to that checklist that they're doing on their own, but you'd be going through that and then also adding the temperature.
Right. I would like to see it if we can practically do the temperature. But basically, the questions they ask you when you go in someplace: do you have any symptoms of COVID? Does anybody in your family have any symptoms? That's a daily health check. I don't know if Tim wants to join in here, because 2 of the software platforms that we use for concussion testing, Impact Concussion, and there's a new one out, Sway, have a health screening app on it. So, Tim, I don't know if you want to add in anything here or just leave it that there'll be a general health screening before anybody participates. Is Tim hiding? No. I don't know where he is.
Okay, bud.
I think trying to unmute. I don't know if we can.
Unmute. Yeah, it's.
Okay.
There we go. There you go.
I'm sorry, my 14 and my 12-year-old weren't here to help me tonight. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think using those platforms of impact, which we have used in the past at Falmouth High School for the past, I think, 10 years, would be a good model to follow with the student athlete to do their screening as we move forward on a daily basis of seeing them at the school. You know, and this is going to be something new. There's going to be a learning curve that's going to take place for us. And hopefully in the next week to 10 days, we can have things figured out in time to be up and running in a good fashion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Melissa, did you have a question?
Hi, yes, a couple of comments. Kathleen, and thank you to you and Mrs. Gans and everyone that's worked so hard to make the sports happen. I know that it's not an ideal situation, but I can tell you that from experience this summer, my son playing baseball, and there were rules and regulations surrounding it, and then other regulations that came up sort of halfway through the season. We did whatever it took to make those children happy. I think that the people that really want to play, the student athletes that really want to play, are going to abide by these rules. I do appreciate Mrs. Gans's zero tolerance on anyone trying to have a variation on them. But I think that as student athletes and as parents and support people, we're going to do whatever it takes, because this is such an important part of their lives that they've missed out on. So I thank all of you. I don't really have any questions. I hope that we are able to obtain digital thermometers for each team. Maybe, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to micromanage who would do the temp checking and who would then record it, but I'm sure that that will be managed by the coaches or Mrs. Burke. But the clutch there is the digital thermometer from somebody who takes temps all day long at work. I can assure you it's quick, it's efficient, it's touchless. So there's no, you know, you don't have to really get all up in their face with the digital. So I hope that they're, I don't know if we already have them or if we need to acquire them, but that's an excellent tool.
And thank you. It is recommended. I hope we're able to do that. You hate to rely on just a self-screening. Oh, I feel fine today. I'd like to have the backup of digital thermometers, at least enough in the training room, and I have access to it if we can't do it across the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Lisa.
I also want to echo what Melissa just said. I think it's imperative that we have sports for kids, and I think I cannot thank you know, Kathleen Burke and Mary Gans for really rallying and pulling this together, because I think it's just so important for these kids. I did have a couple of questions. The health screening that is required, is that in lieu of a waiver? I know that some sports in town, Melissa was just speaking about the youth baseball. My son also played youth baseball, and they had to sign off on a waiver. I'm just curious if this is kind of in lieu of a waiver, or if you will still be requiring a waiver. And then also, how do you anticipate tryouts coming up, and when do those get started, as well as, you know, practices? The tryouts, are those same criteria or, you know, restrictions going to apply for tryouts, and when does that start?
So I can talk about the waiver. Kathleen actually has obtained some waiver samples from some other school districts. For example, Duxbury already put some documentation into place. Well, their league, the league that they're in, did. So we will review that with Dr. Dorr and decide how to move forward. But Kathleen can talk about the other piece, the practice.
And I think it's a waiver and the health screening. I'm just hoping the health screening can go beyond, yeah, I feel fine. I'm hoping there's a little more teeth to it. The first official day for the Fall 1 sports season, according to the MIA, is September 18th. So we could start with meetings and so forth, but that's a conversation I still need to have with Mrs. Gans and Dr. Durr. Do we want to try to start this before the students are officially back? Tryouts are going to be difficult because the numbers are going to be larger in a tryout situation. Once we have teams selected, then we can, get into the cohorts and dividing into smaller groups. But we do have to follow these regulations even during the tryout period. So however that can be structured, that's the way we're going to have to do it. Small groups, and start from the beginning, the way we expect to go on. I assume there'll be some families that decide not to do a sport this year, but generally we've received a lot of inquiries. As you know, parents and students sign up on Family ID, and those numbers are increasing as we get closer. So I'm excited at the possibility of even doing this. As you said, last spring, there was so much disappointment, and to make this work this fall, we'll do what we need to do. It might involve limiting numbers. Certainly we have to limit numbers on buses, for example. How many buses are we going to send with one soccer team? But September 18th is the earliest allowable date. Officially, our kids start on September 21st. We'll have meetings before that. I'll get general information out, and then coaches will give sport-specific information out.
Thank you again. I appreciate it. I know, like you said, the kids have gone without for so long, and so this is just, I think, really critical for good mental health and those athletes that want to play. And I really appreciate you pushing it through.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea, then Terry.
Thank you for that update. It really helped to clarify a lot of the questions I had when I was looking through some of the documentation that MIA put out. So a couple more questions. I can see how a lot of the protocols that you're describing will really help with practices, sort of our side of things. What I haven't heard much about is what the schedule is going to look like, about the competitions with other schools and how that sort of fits into the mix. I'll let you go with that because then I might have some follow-up questions.
Okay, and the athletic directors from the Cape and Island League have been meeting every week since last spring. Right now, the schedules, we intend to limit them to league competition. The seasons are shorter, and in working with Dr. Parkinson, he certainly made it clear that staying close geographically is important. So we are not anticipating a lot of travel. We're not anticipating competition outside the league competition. The MIAA has...
Oh, Kathleen, you just muted by accident.
Oh, when I hit one button, it does. Okay, there won't be any postseason tournaments. The MIA will not have those tournaments, which also allows for this fall season to drop in right after February vacation. If we do any kind of end of season tournament, it would be within the league structure. And I think every AD in our league, there are 14 schools, have the same concerns. They have to follow these same protocols. If they have a positive test on anybody from one of their teams, they have to let us know, and contact tracing would begin. So it is a concern. This is one way to limit it, to really limit the schedule and the teams that we're playing. We didn't like to see Barnstable in yellow the other day, but we're hoping that will pass. And I'm sure they're just as concerned. We were shaded, and then we're going to be green. Whoever made the comment early on, we're just going to have to deal with the things that come up.
Yeah, so that is helpful, and it does sound like you still have quite a few details to figure out there, because I guess we start to think about all the things that we've put in place so that we can get our students back in school.
Mm-hmm.
And then we add this into the mix, which is great. And we have control over some portion of that. And it sounds like I said, you've got some really good protocols in place. And so we'll be working on that. But then we start to mix with these other schools who we have less control over. And yes, I know there's been all these discussions and everybody's trying to do the same things. But I guess I'm just concerned about what happens to our academic cohorts when we're now adding this other piece into the mix. And I don't think that anything with doing our sports, but, keeping that to sort of the practice scenarios versus the competition scenarios, which then take us out of our schools. That's where my biggest concerns lie, because if something happens because we've added this in that is going to knock our schools out of session, I'm just weighing that risk and how that gets much bigger and affects a lot of our, whole classes, whole buildings potentially of our families and our students.
Right. And that's the balancing act. The reward, people see the value and how much excitement there is about bringing sports back, but certainly the risk is there as well.
And Andrea, can I say one thing too? Sorry,
Sure,
Kathleen.
go ahead. Yeah.
One of the things that we were hearing throughout from athletic directors and principals, not just in our league, but throughout Massachusetts, is students, athletes who, if their school is not going to allow sports, they're going into their own club sports anyway. So they're going off and they're competing and they're doing things, and sometimes going into other states, like we've seen players going to New Hampshire or Rhode Island or Connecticut. So that would pose a risk as well, right? So we thought it certainly is a risk, but that's why Kathleen said we want to stay within league, because we feel at least we have a little bit control on the Cape. We have pretty good numbers on the Cape. At least we have somewhat of a sense of what we know what's going on here. We're not going to play schools that are out of our league.
Okay. Yeah, that is helpful. Thank you. I guess the one other piece that is just sort of for clarification, because I can see, like, when you're talking about the cross country, that all seemed very clear. Golf, that all seemed very clear. So the other team sports, and I know that there's these sort of new rules that you alluded to, but I'm just trying to, really imagine it. So how do you change soccer to not get everybody close together? I just don't really even understand how that happens.
No contact, no intentional contact at all. If you do, you'll be removed from the game. So if you get a yellow card, the official will control some of that, but all these rules were put in place. For instance, field hockey went to 7 aside, no corners, to eliminate players from the same team or opposite teams coming into close contact. The modifications for soccer are very long, very detailed, to the point where soccer coaches wondered if it was still soccer. But everything they've put in has been to keep a distance between the players. So if you are a soccer player, you don't like a call an official makes, if you go within 6 feet of that official, first a warning with the yellow card and then a red card and you're gone. If you approach the official and go within that 6 feet. Soccer's a tough one. Field hockey, reduce the numbers, but they either do it this way or we don't do soccer. And the face mask is a big part of it too. The fact that you have to play with the face mask on minimizes some of the risk. So you've added social distancing and face masks to athletic competition and a whole bunch of rules to keep people apart.
So they'll be learning a new sport.
Yeah, they really will look like, especially field hockey and soccer, definitely will look like very different games.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, thank
Terry, then Bill.
Okay, my first part of my question was what Andrea asked. I wondered, how far-reaching our teams would go within the league, and were other members of the league, were they all going to be in it? That was one. The second one was, I firmly believe we have a third protection, which is the kids. I'm confident they so want to play that they will abide by these rules. Well, they'll try to abide by them. And the third thing was, it's a totally random thought I had about when you're talking about getting the kids to and from the games and the busing. I know some parents in our district have volunteered to bring their kids to school. And I know is it the MIAA who makes those transportation rules, Kathleen?
Each district makes their own transportation rules. Like we generally want kids on school buses. We expect them to take the school-provided transportation. If there are parents that prefer to drive their students,
right.
and Mary can speak to this because that was one of the other waivers or permission forms that were part of this. Having a parent drive their own child, we always let that happen coming home from games, not usually to games. The problem comes in if spectators aren't allowed, that parent is driving to a game and may not be able to see them. But I think, Terry, to answer your question, I think we will have to be more flexible with the transportation in terms of parental involvement. We're still not ready to give the kids the keys and say, meet us there. We're not going down that road.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, field hockey has gone from 11 to 7. Is there any modifications in the numbers in soccer?
They kept 11, but put in so many rules to keep contact out of the game. The modifications for soccer, as I said, are the longest and most complicated. I don't know why they didn't look at that. I can tell you a little bit about the process. The sports committees at the MIA, the Field Hockey Committee, the Soccer Committee, prepared modifications, and they went to the Sports Medicine Committee. And according to the field hockey people, the only way they were going to get it through was to reduce the numbers.
Okay.
Soccer went a different route and put layer after layer of rules in there. No tackling, no contact, no throw-ins, no heading. You're a soccer guy? Yeah. Okay.
No, I'll get you the next one.
All right.
Another one is, I'm glad you're limiting the competition. I think that's important from a local standpoint because kids obviously need the competition. That's why you play the game. Are schedules drawn up yet, or is that still kind of in the future?
They've been drawn up many times. We have the newly approved delayed opening. Generally, 10 games is the maximum. There'll be our league is divided into an Atlantic division and a Lighthouse division. So if we play everybody once, home and away, you'll have 8 games, then you might pick up a non-divisional one. But to my knowledge, nobody is going over the bridge to play.
Okay. And I think the biggest concern that I have, and this will obviously be from a former football coach, is I understand that fall 2 session will be football, cheering, and unified basketball.
And now volleyball for us.
Okay, and thank you. But coaches at this point in time can practice with probably a lot of different modifications as far as pods and grouping and stretching and things of that nature, and testing and everything you've mentioned. So if we get into that zone where we have that fall 2 session, are these coaches, are we going to be bound by the state to say that football can continue? Are we going to be bound by the state to say that unified basketball can continue? Are we going to be bound by the state to say that we're not sure about hockey or basketball? Do we have to wait a certain period of time for the state to say yay or nay to obviously move on? That's a real concern of mine because we're going to have kids practicing that still may or may not be able to advance into competition.
Yeah, we are bound by the DESE and MIA.
And fall sports, winter sports such as basketball, hockey, wrestling haven't been given approval yet.
Yes.
That's right. They're looking at the numbers in October. And this fall 2 was obviously the accommodation they made because there was no way to play football, to do cheerleading safely now. The practices are, and Mary and I just had this discussion today. Do we want to allow any of the traditional fall sports that can't play right now to do any of the practicing conditioning? We're not allowing it now. Most of the schools in the league will look at it after we get the fall sports underway. But if you're talking about weight training and conditioning, it would be similar as a football coach, what you might do in the summer. And there's strict rules about the weight room and so forth. But as far as bringing teams together and dividing them up, that has not been approved yet. And we really need to look at that. one, it also increases the number of athletes that are going to be in the athletic end of the building without competition. You know, you bring more people in and you have more, I don't know, chances of somebody coming in contact with someone that might be positive. So no definite decisions. The four we talked about at length, the four sports, soccer, hockey, golf, and cross country. The other traditional fall sports have moved to fall too, but it has not been approved yet.
Gotcha.
People are questioning, how are we ever going to play football unless the vaccine is in place, unless, you know, the numbers have changed dramatically. How can we do that? And I think winter sports still need to be discussed. I don't know if anybody else has any more information on that, whether Tim or Dr. Parkinson or Julie or anybody, but the MIA has not approved anything beyond the fall.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? John?
Yeah, I have a bunch of things, so bear with me here. I'm just going to get them out, and then if you need me to reaffirm some of them. You know, with the travel, I agree. I'd rather have the kids on the buses when they're going to games and things rather than driving themselves. In a similar notion, when they're in a hybrid, where a kid is out, you know, a student is out that, you know, at home virtual that week, will we provide buses to get them from the home to the school? And bear with me as I continue. The other question I had was, for other teams, if we, you know, if somebody has a rock star scorer in soccer, and that kid may have a temperature, and our coach feels as if, wait a minute, I'm concerned about that student, whether, you know, are the mechanisms in place that we could then, you know, ask the referee to take a temperature or something like that. And then also with regards to spectators are so important as a dynamic here, and I totally agree, it'd be very tough to have spectators. But along those lines, can we have students attend and you know, a game or a meet and cheer? And then also as a suggestion, maybe we could have a share page for each sport so that family members and other students can see, all right, here's the results, and as much as possible, upload things like that. And then for the sports that are outdoor, I know it would be a very challenging thing to do, but I would like to have it as a potential thing as once we're set up down the road of perhaps looking into whether we could have a spectator, you know, who has a negative COVID test, proof of a negative COVID test. I mean, if you're outside and we have spots on the seats that they can sit in and just space out, especially like for soccer, we have such an expanse where people are really miles apart from each other anyway, a lot of times standing on the sidelines. If that would be possible to keep that as a potential thing down the line. Okay, so there's all my questions. Thank you so much.
I can speak to the spectators, and Kathleen can answer the others, but the problem with the spectators, John, is the supervision of them. And, you know, the coaches and the officials, they're all paying attention to the game. Kathleen and Tim, if they're on the field, they're paying attention to the game. If there isn't, you know, other staff members assigned, supervising even student spectators could be a problem. And, you know, no one there to fully enforce the rules that we want in the social distancing and mask wearing. I just have concerns about that. And in terms of remote students, when they're home, they can come to I don't know about bus transportation. Many of them might be able to get a ride, or, you know, get a ride with a friend who's also remote, who's also on the team and in their cohort. But I don't know that buses would go to individual student homes and bring them back to the field.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be a challenge though if someone would, I mean, I know a lot of them have friends that drive, but some.
Yeah, no, it definitely, yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
Students won't be allowed to drive. I mean, they can drive to school as they always have, and they would whether they were in school or not in school. but it takes super special double secret permission for a student to ever drive to any contest. I send them to Mary. Mary and I usually talk, and it has to be an exceptional situation. We feel a great deal of liability with letting a student drive anywhere. So the plan is to use school transportation. I spoke very briefly with Greg Kennedy. He just asked me where sports going to happen. And at that point I was saying, I hope so. But we would have to follow the same transportation guidelines that they do transporting students to school. The temperature, I don't know if it would be our role to say that kid looks sick, but an official takes control of that game. And I think they could, ask a trainer to look at it, similar to a concussion situation. If a kid's hurt or something, our trainer has a lot to say about that. But, that's something I hadn't really thought of. Spectators are a big concern. A lot of league discussion about it. At this point, there are provisions for spectators, but they are so restrictive and so difficult to manage, we can't do it yet. Can we down the road? Hopefully. But I think the schools in the league and most leagues have made the decision, no spectators, just for the reasons that Mary talked about. How do we possibly manage that piece when we have so much going on the field? The one thing
we are exploring ways to live stream, John, so that, yeah.
That'd be great.
I didn't want to jump the, And I think
we're just exploring it.
Right, that's right. I didn't want to.
Yeah. I just want to piggyback on one of John's questions, because I am concerned that because we're on the hybrid, that if there is an expectation that kids are going to be at practice every week, and some of them do not have a parent that's at home that can take them to that practice, that we're then, we're telling kids who have two working parents that they can't play a sport. And so I'm really concerned about that.
I think we would definitely work on a case-by-case basis and see what we could do to accommodate a student like that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because that's worrisome.
Yeah, no, I don't want to put a student in that situation either.
Exactly. John, did you, or taking a ride from somebody that they shouldn't?
No, yeah, that was
all
actually
your questions?
Yeah, that was actually a main point of it, was if someone is in a financial situation that they don't have a car or something, that you wouldn't want to preclude them from playing. Yep,
totally.
Exactly. Thank you.
I do think that, we have to be careful in our attempts to be safe within that world of the sport, to not do something that's unsafe on the way there. And, when I'm riding my bike and somebody's on the sidewalk and I veer out into the road to stay away from the pedestrian, I don't want to go out so far that I'm putting myself in the path of a car. In the same way, you don't want kids who are on their junior operator license to be driving their friends and doing things that we know are unsafe. It gets, there's a lot of layers, as you know.
That's a helpful example. Thank you. Bill, did I see you had one more question?
Yes. We do professional development for teachers. I'm wondering what kind of training we're doing for coaches, and that would include our local school, as well as league. Because if kids are going to compete, I think these coaches obviously have to be trained in all these things regarding COVID, all the safety issues that you're doing, obviously from temperature to cohorts to spacing to masking and everything else. But is that done just locally, or is that done within the league as well?
All right. The MIA has coaches education, which covers a lot of different topics. They just recently, and they're under the NFHS, National Federation of High School Sports. There is a new webinar, free webinar for everybody that coaches, athletes, parents will all need to view. Playing in the Age of COVID, I think is the title of it. So I will take responsibility, and Tim Wakefield and the head coaches for going over all these protocols. Like, we always follow the rules, but now there's a higher stake involved here, for me and for everybody else. So there's the regular coaches education, That's always expected. And then there's added pieces of it. And the MIAA is good about adding more programs. But the COVID piece, I'll preview that. If you go on NFHS, that's the national organization that produces the concussion information, first aid, sports-specific coaching. But the newest one that came out is the COVID. And you're right, all the schools in the league need to do this. And we have a good relationship with the schools in the league. It's not like I'm sending a team to a town I don't know or a school I don't know. We're talking 8 to 10 games or matches, but yeah, education, the coaches, and we were kind of waiting for this meeting to happen. I didn't want to go forward too much until I knew that, you know, we could address all of your concerns and questions and then move forward.
So that's a nice tee up, Kathleen. So I appreciate that. That just to be clear, because we are not in a fully remote model, the school committee does not have to vote to have sports. It's included in the model that we're in. So this was just an opportunity for us to hear about all the provisions and the structure that everyone has been going through and the 8 million hoops that they've jumped through to try and make it happen. So I also want to acknowledge that Ralph has a question. And so Ryan, if you could promote Ralph so we can hear what his question is as well. And Ralph, you're all set. You're just muted.
So sorry.
No worries.
I'm not sure if I heard this right. My daughter plays club and wants to do school stuff. Is she not going to be able to do both?
Normally you can. What age group? What sport would you want to play in the school district?
Goalie.
Okay, and what grade will she be in?
She's a freshman.
Okay, you can do both. A different rule kicks in though, and that's if you're on a high school team, then you cannot miss any team commitments in order to play for a non-school team. So that always kind of limits, once you get to the high school level, it's difficult to play for a travel team, a club team. What we were saying, and I think the reference earlier was that if we didn't offer this at the high school level, clubs are still operating. There's volleyball clubs all fall, there's travel soccer teams. So I think the answer to your question is yes, you can do both, but anytime there's a conflict, you must attend the school.
But there's no additional like COVID restriction that you can
no, there's no restrictions in the guidelines from the state that limit that.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the question, Ralph. Appreciate it. Any other questions for our sports experts? Terry.
A while ago, when I made my comments, I said we could count on the kids, but they are, Mary, did I understand you correctly? We are going to have a form that they sign.
Well, I have to review that with Dr. Dorr, but there are forms out there, waivers, and the parents sign as well, that they understand the risks, they understand the rules, going through the training with the coaches and with the athletic trainer and with Kathleen. Hopefully they will read it all, they'll hear it all, and they'll follow it all.
Okay, but we will offer something in writing for them too, so that's...
Yes, I'm hoping so. It's just a matter of what it is. We want to make sure the language is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you guys for entertaining our 8 million questions. But I think if we have those questions, everyone has those questions like we were talking about earlier. So, so thank you for indulging us.
No, thank you. I appreciate the support and we'll move forward.
We'll move forward. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys.
Yes, okay, thanks.
So next on our agenda is a reboot from our last meeting, the Equity and Diversity Coordinator job description. We finally get to actually spend some time on it. Jawani, are you taking the lead on this one?
I am. I believe
Awesome.
you all have it in the packet.
We did. Thank you.
Okay. The Affirmative Action Committee is an advisory committee that's appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and they have the responsibility around reviewing affirmative action policy and relevant programs. But I would be remiss if I didn't credit much of the hard and focused work of the Affirmative Action Committee and other town advocates for equity and inclusion and anti-bias and an anti-racist agenda in Falmouth. For the position that resulted in the diversity, equity, and inclusion position, coordinator position that you have before you. The position has been funded jointly by the town of Falmouth and the Falmouth Public Schools, as you know, but they will service the entire Falmouth community. Right now, myself as the Director of Human Resources and Denise Coleman as the Director of Human Resources for the town, as well as Joan Woodward, the Director of Student Services, are responsible for a lot of the affirmative action movement, concerns, questions, complaints that come in from employees or students and parents. But there's a greater Falmouth community. This position would be for the varied needs of all the diverse stakeholders in the town of Falmouth. At the next affirmative action meeting, the committee meeting, we will have discussion on ways to seek public comment on the draft job description that you have in front of you. We want to make sure that it's an inclusive and transparent process and that diverse stakeholders have an opportunity to weigh in and give feedback to the town and to the school committee.
Any questions or comments about the job description or the process or anything? Leah, then Natalie.
Hi, can you hear me okay? I have my earbuds in now. Yes?
Yep, you're good.
So I think I commented on this before. I like how inclusive it is of all the different roles that this position would have. One piece that I saw coming from my professional lens of what I do in advocating for immigrant families is I see that that's missing right now in that job description around potentially having maybe the ELL coordinator for the Falmouth Public Schools be listed as one of the people who might be involved in someone who's a resource for this person. So that was a suggestion I had. And also there is an Immigration Resource Center in Hyannis that could also be included as a resource. So we have immigrant advocates being part of this process too. And I know that there's a list of lots of different organizations and things, and it's not all inclusive there. So there's definitely more. So if you're going to include more, I would say the immigrant advocacy would be great to include.
Yeah, I think your point also speaks to why we feel like having a period of open public comment to gather more feedback can only be used to strengthen the job description, because we clearly can't think of it all. But if we have folks with diverse backgrounds and diverse experiences have an opportunity to formally give that feedback, then it can be looked at and cross-referenced with what's already there.
Yes, so there's my feedback, and I'm glad that there will be open feedback for all of this. So thank you.
Natalie?
Yes, so first, thank you so much for all of your hard work, the collective, all of your hard work. I know the public has a few questions about the timeline and the process in terms of open comment. So could you speak to that overall timeline a little bit, please?
Well, we're hoping that the timeline will be January 2021 for posting and beginning an interview process. But between now and then, there has to be this process of posting for public comments, discussion with the Affirmative Action Committee, being able to not only gather the feedback and the comments from the public, but also have a chance to cross-reference it. And at some point, we will have a process that will in some ways include the advertising, the recruitment, the interview process, all the way to a finalist and someone being hired for the position. And so being as transparent as we possibly can to include all stakeholders, still understanding that this is a regular job for someone and that, you know, there are some labor rules connected to it. We do want to open up the process. So an ambitious timeline is to be able to go through that with the Affirmative Action Committee and the community as a whole, this school committee, as well as the Board of Selectmen, at some point, we have to come back with what is the final version of the job description for you to vote on, and then post it, hopefully January 2021, hoping 2021 is a much kinder year than 2020 has been so far, and start the advertisement and the recruitment process for qualified applicants.
Thank you. So I had a couple questions. First, I really like how the position feels more like proactive and engaging rather than just reactive.
Right.
So I really liked how it definitely, I feel like that comes through in the job description. So I had two questions. One is that I noticed that it is responsible to, I'm not sure who the actual person will be, but I think it lists Dr. Doerr and Julian Suso. And I'm thinking, like, good gravy, how in the world does somebody respond and report to two completely different people? And so figuring out how to make that work, I think would be an important detail. And then one question I had was whether or not this person would be tasked with helping look at the school curriculum as well, whether that will be part of it to make sure that, I'll just leave it at that, will help us look at our curriculum and make sure that we're doing what we need to do the way we need to do it. Or do we not know yet?
So, so that's part of our overall plan and part of our 3-year goals is to look at the curriculum. And Dr. Tallier is leading the charge, but with the department heads and the grade level leaders in reviewing the curriculum, making suggestions for changes. I don't know if you want to add something, Sonia.
Sure. So we've begun to remove some titles from our required text and even from our supplemental text and begun to make some changes. But in the broader sense of making sure that we're doing what's right for our students, we want to have this person partner with us and then just kind of help usher us along in our work. So we're making decisions right now about curricular resources, but we want some broader impact on the way we teach selections and literature, the way we teach history, and then also looking at some of the people that are elevated in discussion across different disciplines. So we've begun to scratch the surface, but we're really looking to partner with this person to carry us forward.
I'm really glad to hear that, but I'm not sure from my read of the job description that piece comes through, because that's I think a very specified role that they might fill. So trying to have that well described, I think, would be really helpful. I usually go last, but I piped right up in the middle. Sorry, Andrea, go ahead.
That's fine. Shake things up a little bit. I guess my question was really around process. And Johnny, I think you've explained a little bit of that in terms of the additional feedback that's going to happen. I really don't know who's all on the committee that's developed it to this point. When I was looking at it, like basically I was thinking, as a white female, I don't want to be the person really sort of saying that this is how it should be structured. So I like that we're getting that community feedback as well. I guess I'm looking for reassurance that the right people are at the table, or if not, that there are ways to bring them to the table. And then I guess for that community feedback, I would like to know how we're going to make sure that that happens. Because I think often we have that intention, but it's really hard to communicate that. So is there a process for actively looking for that feedback?
Yes, there is. So I can appreciate your concern for making sure that there are varied and diverse stakeholders involved in the process at every step. And both Natalie and Joan are on the affirmative action or at the affirmative action meetings. And we do have an opportunity to have candid conversations and intend on doing so. And so I think that the public to be reassured that by opening up this draft job description to public comments, both on the school district as well as the town, and finding other ways of spreading the word that that anyone who wants to provide feedback and input and resources towards that job description can do so. We have our info@Falmouth email that we can utilize so that people have a way of having a public record that they've given their feedback, which I think is important. And we can discuss with the town if they would like to use the same one or create another one. But that's the initial, and we want to leave it open, a nice window as well, for there to be enough advertising, enough spreading the word, enough varied stakeholder groups to know about it, organize, and provide their feedback. So that's part of what we will be discussing with the Affirmative Action Committee when we meet again. I don't have a date for the next meeting, and I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't think it's been posted.
That's really great, because I'm sure that you guys are having the same challenge that we're having with everything now, is that there would have been so many different ways of being active about that and going to different places and asking for that input. But now that we're not meeting in person that way, it's going to be more of a challenge. So, but thank you for all the work you guys are doing on this.
Any last thoughts or questions? All right. Thank you so much. Thanks, Joannie. Thanks for getting bumped to tonight and we can actually talk about it. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Kelly, there is a hand raised.
Oh, thank you. I didn't notice. Can we promote Megan, please? Thank you for noticing. I've been trying, but I still. And Megan, if you can just tell us your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Megan Hannawalt. I want to thank the town specifically for moving so fast at our June town meeting for approving the funding for this position. And I really am impressed with and thankful for the team that started the ball rolling without the actual position being approved yet. Hopefully on Monday that will happen. So thank you, Joannie, Joan, Denise, and Julian. I'm a co-chair of the Affirmative Action Committee with Trish Oshman. And yeah, we sit with Joannie and Joan every month, except for a few during the COVID spring. And this is a very important topic for our committee. We've been working really hard on it for a while with a lot of help from public contributors. So thank you for getting it this far. Really appreciate your help. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 21, but it may change. We're having some scheduling challenges with our select board member representative to the committee wants to be at our next meeting. So Megan English Braga's schedule needs to align with ours, so that could take a little work, but as soon as we have our date and agenda, we'll post it on the town website. I wasn't sure, Joannie, I didn't catch the email that public can send comments to for input on the job description, but our committee, the Affirmative Action Committee, created a subcommittee, and one of their roles is to help engage diverse members of the public. This is really a trailblazing job because it does involve the community as well as the school and the town. And we want to get as diverse perspective and input as we can. And I would just like to offer that if you can't attend our meetings, you can send an email to aai@falmouthma.gov. And we're happy to steer those to the subcommittee that's helping really dig into this job with the Joannie, Joan, Denise, and Julian team. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks for your work on it as well. And I will also mention that the full job description is in the school committee packet on the agenda center on the town's website in case anybody wants to see the whole thing. Any last thoughts?
I actually have a question. Yeah. Will I be able to have it posted and open for public comment without there being a move from the school committee, or do you have to make a motion to do that?
I don't think we would have to vote on, you mean just to have that, just to be able to open up that dialogue and take that input?
Yes.
I don't think so. Lori, do you?
No,
Lori, where did you go? Oh, there you are.
I'm here. No, so we planned on going through that process. What the school committee needs to do is vote on the job description. So once we have all the feedback, and then we'll be bringing you a final recommendation, but you'll get to see all the comments as well, and then make any final changes as you're making that decision.
Okay.
In the end.
Good question. Thank you. See, and then you moved again immediately after. Okay. Next up, presentation on the superintendent's evaluation timeline. Natalie, are you taking this?
I am taking this.
Okay, great.
So in your school committee packet, you should have a copy of the timeline, but I'm actually going to share my screen so you can see it as well. In essence, one moment here.
Oh, you might need permission to share. Can she have permission to share, please?
I think I do. Let's see.
Okay, good.
Can everyone see this?
Yep.
Okay, so everyone can see this document. So the evaluation subcommittee met on August 12th just to sort of do a preliminary review of the upcoming year. For the most part, all of the benchmarks follow years past. A few comments. One is that we would like to highly encourage everyone to submit one observation this year. But as always, we need a minimum of 3 observations completed prior to the mid-cycle evaluation, and also another 3 observations completed between the mid-cycle and the summative. I think the reason why I wanted to bring this timeline up for discussion relates to the ending. So traditionally, if I can move my screen here, which I cannot for some odd reason.
By the arrows instead of scrolling.
Yeah, no, it is. It was just blocked behind a face.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so traditionally we end the evaluation process in May. And there had been some discussions last year at the evaluation subcommittee meeting, and also touched upon briefly this year, of extending the end to June. This would allow a more robust sort of portfolio or example of all of Lori's work, and also gives her a little bit more time to reach her benchmarks. But there are always, challenges with that, with, the composition of the school committee and people up for re-election, that sort of thing. So I kind of wanted to bring this to you to kind of get a read on consensus and thoughts in terms of, do we keep the evaluation period to end in May like we have done the last few years, or if we extend it into June? So that is a very quick summary of the thoughts.
That's great. Thank you. Did anybody have any, and I apologize that I cannot see everyone. So if you are raising your hand.
That's a great question.
Terry, there we go. Terry, I see you.
Okay. Philosophically, I think it would be wonderful to extend it to June, but realistically, if someone new came on the committee, I don't think it would be relevant. So I strongly suggest that we keep that timeline that has the committee that has worked with Lori. That's just my 2 cents.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it's funny, Terry, because sorry.
No, you go ahead, Kelly.
That was the one thing that I noticed, was that the timeline was still ending early, and I was part of those conversations last year, trying to extend it into June, in part because it felt as though in people's superintendent evaluation, it worked against Lori that she hadn't finished things. And granted, we had COVID, so there was that. But even in a normal year, her timeline, her goals will take her all the way to the end of the school year. And to evaluate her over a month earlier than that seems unfair. And I understand the issue of turnover with the school committee, because potentially there could be 3 new members every single year. And then what do we do about that? But I do think it's worth considering what provisions to put in place for if we have a new school committee member come on, or does a person complete an evaluation before they leave, rather than having going into it knowing that we're gonna hold it against our superintendent that she doesn't have the full amount of time, I guess is my concern. And if ever she's gonna need the time, it's gonna be this year because it's gonna be a lot. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but those are my thoughts because I was on that committee last year, part of those. Leah.
So maybe I need Terry's help with this, or maybe Kelly, you can help. I'm just thinking historically, I know that we actually made the date, we changed the date from a later date before.
We did.
And really the idea being that potentially you could have 3 new school committee members coming in, right? And I think that it is important to acknowledge that we are only doing our evaluation up to a certain point. But a lot of times the superintendent's goals are multi-year. So there are times where it's not like you have to wait to the end of the year to see that. Because you would still have to wait the next year or the year after that. Sometimes there are 3-year goals. So I really worry about 3 people going out and 3 new people coming in, and just that would not do that would not be good for Lori's evaluation. She, you want people to be with her through the process. So I think my comment is I think this is a better situation right now, but I think we should be cognizant, and everybody, when they're doing the evaluation, that you're not going to have the end result for this school year. And that's not ultimately what this evaluation is about. This evaluation is about kind of ongoing, how is Lori doing, and looking at her goals. So is she on track with those goals? That's what you want to look at.
It's helpful to think about the multi-year thing. I hadn't really thought about that. Terry?
Yes, and we incorporated a lot of benchmarks too, to measure the things. And I can't remember in other years that there's been an issue if you didn't go to the very end of the year. I just think it outweighs my opinion about new people really not being accurate, number one, because they haven't been there. And so anyway, I'm just reiterating what I just said, I guess.
And I think it's really helpful. And it's important to make the decision consciously. We don't want to do something just because that's how we've done it, so, but you guys make a compelling argument. So.
Absolutely, thank you. Anyone, I can't see other people.
I can't see everyone either, actually. And yell if you have something. Okay, so this takes us right into the presentation of Lori's goals for the year. And this was something that was not in the packet, Lori, so I don't know if, I actually think I have it. You want me to pull it up?
No, I got a presentation ready.
Oh, fantastic, great. Maybe.
Yes, I do. Just a second. Okay. I can present mode. All right. So obviously my goals for this school year, 2021 school year. First, I'll talk about the goals, the 4 goals being to implement a district-wide plan and school-specific plans in response to COVID-19. The second goal, to focus on equity, inclusion, and diversity. 3, address homework policy and practice concerns in grades pre-K to 12. And 4, complete the new superintendent induction program. Just wanted to share that these are all the standards for superintendents. And you'll see a variety of these selected for each one of the goals as I move through the specifics about the goals. So goal 1, it is the student learning goal, and it is a 1-year goal, hopefully. we return next school year to a normal school year. Obviously, this could get extended, but to implement a district-wide plan and school-specific plans in response to COVID-19, the administration will implement the approved reopening plans with fidelity. These are the standards that are covered. There are standards from the first standard that's around a lot of the teaching and learning. So our standards-based unit and lesson support, student engagement, the quality of effort and work and meeting diversity needs, variety of assessment methods and adjustments of practices. You'll see that all of these type of things have all been adjusted for this school year and to be able to look at that. Then you move through to the second standard, which is really about plans, procedures, routines, operational systems, our social and emotional well-being, and the student health and safety, obviously, is a large part of the plans, as well as recruitment and hiring strategies and the induction and professional development. And then also, just the time for teaching and learning, time for collaboration, the laws and policies, and our fiscal systems. As well, family engagement, community and stakeholder engagement, student support, family support, our cultural proficient communication, addressing family concerns, a commitment to high standards. This is going to be a very different year, and commit to our Falmouth community that our standards will stay high as they are in all of our other years. And make sure that all decisions are focused on our mission and core values. Policies and practices, the communication skills, and as well as just to skip down at the bottom, response to disagreement, conflict resolution. And I think most important during, as we're changing plans, is really that consensus building. Key actions to work with district administrators and principals to develop the plans that ensure implementation, which we have been working on all summer. We have plans in place. We're really now ready for implementation and the tweaking of those plans. Work with principals to identify school actions that carry out the district strategy and school-based models, conduct monthly meetings with the school community, just to ensure that there's communication and feedback. We want to continue to survey staff and families on the effectiveness of the plan. We do want to know how we're doing and to give us an opportunity to review and revise as needed and communicate new information in the progress of plans. Measures will be the ongoing planning, monitoring, review meetings with the principals, weekly update meetings with my district administrators on the progress and the outcomes of our implementation, presentation updates at the school committee meetings, survey results, and the school and district communications and media postings. Goal 2, we have, this is a district improvement goal. This is a focus on the equity, inclusion, and diversity. So work with principals and other district leaders to establish a vision and common language and launch professional learning for all staff. The challenges are beliefs, understandings, and practices in the pursuit of equitable academic and social emotional outcomes for our students. I have stated this as a year 1 of 3-year goal, although in the last 2 years, we have done a lot of equity audits in the district and a lot of conversation. I'm aligning the work moving forward with our district-wide goal that is included in all of our school plans that you will hear about. So to Leah's point, some of them are multiple year goals, and this certainly is one. The standards, again, looking at the curriculum piece, student engagement and the meeting diverse needs, making decisions based on our data, the plan, and then developing those plans and goals based on the data. Looking at the social emotional well-being of our staff and students. Again, recruitment and hiring strategies as part of the 3-year goal, induction and the professional development, family engagement, student support, family support our cultural and professional communication. Again, always a focus on the mission and core values, policies and practices, communication skills, and the continuous learning of staff and the continuous learning of administrators is extremely important. Key action, facilitate the book study, challenging our beliefs and actions with the administrative team and encouraging book studies in all schools, and all of that began this summer. Participate in professional learning with the administrative team and the school committee. Coordinate professional learning with all Falmouth Public School staff. Develop an equity vision and common definitions and language. Hire the equity and diversity coordinator. Collaborate with this person to increase opportunities for students and families to engage in meaningful work around equity, inclusion, and diversity. Continue to review curriculum inclusion opportunities and continue to review our program data and increase diverse student inclusion. The measures are, the calendar will document meetings and trainings. We will have an equity vision and definition to share. Successful hiring of the new coordinator, increased student and family engagements, increase of the diverse curriculum opportunities, and see an increase in the diverse student participation in all of our programs. Goal 3 is the second district improvement goal. This is in the year 2 of a 2-year goal. We started addressing the homework policy and practice concerns last year. We largely put things on hold when we closed schools, but we did have one additional meeting to talk through because things really changed when things became completely remote work, and the whole definition of homework started to change. So we got a lot of feedback around that when we had the meeting in the spring. And I suspect that the conversations will start moving slightly different as well this year as far as homework. And so the committee is committed to continue the conversations and to, a lot of the standards are the same, the standards from last year, and I'll move into the key actions. But to continue this work and then to provide periodic updates to the community and to make recommendations for next steps. And recommendations were around the policies and the practices. So we've committed to 2 committee meetings. We feel like we really moved along last year to the point that we were close to being completed. Up to the recommendations. We'll have a presentation at the school committee meeting. We'll have evidence of communication with the community, and we will have recommendations for policy and practice change. And goal 4, this is a 3rd year of the 3-year goal. The new superintendent induction program is a 3-year program. It is my professional practice goal. For the 3rd year, since this is the final year, we'll continue. The standards are the same, and key actions that I will attend the content sessions and the consult sessions this year, complete all assignments, and then consult with my assigned coach as needed. And the measures, just the document of attendance and the contact with a coach, and then the rubric rating on the assignments that demonstrates proficiency.
Thank you.
So I'll stop sharing at this point and see if there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Well, first, thank you for that, and thanks to the evaluation subcommittee, because I know that the goals come to the evaluation subcommittee first. To look at and offer feedback. So thank you to you guys too. Any questions about the goals or comments? Other than the obvious one that, you know, the first one is going to take all of your time. I don't believe it. All right.
I'll make a comment.
Oh, go for it.
I just I really appreciate, Lori, that you giving a presentation like that and walking us all through the goals for the public to see, just to know how thorough you are with looking at your goals and developing them. So thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
I think it's also nice for the public to hear that, yes, although the COVID goal is going to take so much time and effort, that the work of the district still keeps going. So the homework thing is still going from last year, and in the induction program is still going. It's not like we've just dropped everything, which is nice.
Wait a minute.
Terry, yep.
Yeah, and the second goal too, I thought, is monumentally timely. And Lori picked right up on that from what the town meeting members discussed, and et cetera. So it's an extremely timely one.
It is. All right, great. Thank you. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Next, we have reviewing, and we will actually vote on the budget development chart for fiscal year 20. I'm going to share it, I hope. Maybe. If it wants to go. Can you see that? Okay, great. So there was one edit that we caught today. This number 8. It used to say December the 15th because that would normally be our regular budget, our regular school committee meeting, but the budget subcommittee always meets on a school committee night. So we moved the budget meeting to be on the same night as our school committee meeting for December, which is earlier. It's the 8th, so that we could avoid meeting during Hanukkah. So that is the one change in this from the one that you have in your packet. I can't see Patrick. Patrick, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about our flow chart.
It's very similar to previous years.
Almost exactly. And acknowledging that we might have to be flexible depending on what happens. Leah.
So just a question for Patrick around chapter 70 and, not knowing exactly what that looks like, though I did just read I think it was in July when the governor came out that we will definitely have the same funding that we had last year and maybe an increase to that. I'm just wondering, would that impact our budget line right here, our calendar?
Yeah, so we are watching what the state revenue numbers look like, especially in the new fiscal year, since the state hasn't actually even completely created a budget for the full fiscal year. And they are looking positive. They're not looking desperately bad. So if things keep going the direction they're going, I think the calendar as it stands now can serve us well. If there's significant changes in the state budget, then my sense is that things might get pushed off a little later, but that would be driven by the town.
Okay, and just what would the process be? Kelly, if we vote on this right now, we can amend it as needed, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. We just it's nice to have the community know what our process is going to be like and have the ideas for when principals are going to be submitting and things like that. And also our friends over at the FinCom who meet with us for budget subcommittee, it's nice to give them some dates but we did talk about today in our first meeting that we may have to be flexible and we may have to amend this if things change, which they totally understand, thankfully. Any other questions about the budget time or budget development flow chart? Make sure I called the right thing. Okay, is there a motion to accept or to approve the budget development flow chart for 2022, fiscal year 2022?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget flow chart for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you so much. Second?
Second.
Lisa, I think you were quick. It's a roll call vote. So we'll start with Bill. Oh, you're muted. Can you do it off mute, even though I know you said yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Natalie?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
John?
John Fenari, yes.
Leah?
Leah Palmer, yes.
Lisa?
It's a heart, yes.
Andrea?
Andrea Thorold, yes.
And Kelly Welch, I'm also a yes, so it's unanimous. So thank you guys. We'll get that sent over to FinCom so they've got the dates for us. Okay, we're moving. Approving the minutes from our August 25th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Melissa has a motion. Is there a second? I'll second them. I second them, Melissa.
Thank
and
you.
Comments or questions? I see a couple hands coming up. Terry, go ahead.
I think, isn't the start time incorrect on that meeting?
Yes.
It says
5:30.
6:30. It's supposed to be 5:30.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so, because we moved into executive session at 5:30. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
Correct.
It should
Thank
just
you.
say it on, yeah.
Yeah, that we opened the meeting at 5:30, moved into executive session. Thank you. Good catch. I didn't catch that. Leah, was that what you had too? I saw your hand pop up. Okay, great. So it's a motion to approve them with that corrected time.
Kelly, can you just confirm the date on that?
It would be August the 25th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other catches on those? Okay. All right, great. So it's a roll call vote. Bill, you're first again.
Yes.
Natalie?
Natalie Canelopoulos, yes.
Melissa?
Melissa Keith, yes.
Terry?
Terry Medeiros, yes.
John?
John Fenari, yes.
Leah?
Leah Palmer, yes.
Lisa?
Lisa Hart, yes.
Andrea?
Andrea Thorold, yes.
And Kelly Welch, I'm also a yes, so that's unanimous. Great, thank you guys. Okay, report from the chair and committee member reports. I have a couple of quick things. One, I had the pleasure of being at Convocation the other day, and I just wanted to reiterate one of the pieces from early in the program, and that was recognizing and honoring staff members who have been in Falmouth for 25 years. And I think it's worth recognizing them, even though they were recognized the other day. I just want to mention them again. So Christine Brothers, Kathleen Burke, I should have done it earlier, Vanera Cox, Melissa Hamilton, and Susan Kelleher. So our thanks to them for being around for 25 years. It's amazing. Next, a note that even though we normally would have a school committee meeting the first night of town meeting, which is now going to be next week, we do not have a meeting scheduled for that. Just putting it out there. And then the last thing is reminding everybody that our anti-bias training with Khalees Warnham is September the 29th. That's that training that we're doing with the select board. And I don't have the time in front of me, but I want to say it's 6 or 6:30. Lori, do you know?
Yes, 6:30 to 8:30.
6:30 to 8:30 on September the 29th. So if that's not already in your calendar, just a quick reminder. Did anybody have any other member updates or requests? Melissa?
I don't really have a member update or a request, but I really think that we should, I don't know if you want to have a moment of silence for Cheryl Nurse Bolai, who passed away. I don't think that we've acknowledged that, and we've done those sorts of acknowledgements in the past. And she really, you know, she was the lead nurse for the district. She really did a lot. She was an amazing person. She was an even better nurse. She, you know, was the nurse at Morse Pond who welcomed all of the elementary kids when, you know, parents are so worried when they go to the big school, and she always made everyone feel calm and at ease. And I think that she deserves to have a something.
I completely agree. Thank you for suggesting it. Let's just take a moment, please. Melissa, thank you for bringing that up and for such a perfect tribute. I really appreciate it. Any other updates? John?
I have some news that I'm going to fade into because, out of respect for that announcement.
Fair enough.
And I'm going to end on a very enthusiastic note, but I'm not going to do it right out of the gates. But for the collaborative, over the summertime, we had the summer sessions successfully, doing COVID-safe practices. They had 2-hour sessions over the summer. Usually it's 5-hour sessions. They didn't have lunch. And what the exciting news I wanted to share was today we had students from Falmouth start school for the fall. So I'm going to clap for those students. There are 13 students from Falmouth in the STAR and the Waypoint programs, and they started today. And there are 40 students in attendance at each of the programs. They're running 5-hour days, and they're doing social distancing, etc. And they're actually having lunch in the classroom. So it can be done. It's being done today, and I'm thrilled and I'm excited for the entire district when we can do that too.
That's great. Thank you. That's really wonderful. All right, keep us posted. We'll keep our fingers crossed for them.
Thank you.
Any other requests or comments? All right, thank you all. Motion to adjourn. Melissa has a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, John. And it's a roll call vote. Natalie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Melissa?
Let's keep yes.
Lisa?
To heart, yes.
Terry?
Terry Medeiros, yes.
John?
John Fenner, yes.
Leah?
Leah Palmer, yes.
Andrea?
Andrea Thorold, yes.
And Kelly Welcham also yes. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank
Take
you,
care of
everyone.
yourselves.